I know we still have 2 feet of snow out there, guys, but it is plus 2 degrees Celsius today, and things are starting to melt. And I have got expeditions on the brain. And I want to discuss with you guys a couple of awesome places that we are going to go check out this spring. 100%, these are getting checked off the list. We have been talking about going to these places, and we have tried to find one of these places a few times. And that is Fort Laronde, which was a major stopover on the colonial fur trade route here in my own town. Not only in my own town, but about 500 yards away from where my house is, okay? We talk about the Lavaz River is just across the road, and that is the main fur trade route from the 1700s. Actually, it goes right back to the 1600s. The French were here first, then the English, then the French. They fought. The Iroquois, the Nipissing natives, all kinds of battles, okay? Some of them went with the English, some went with the French, and it changed hands a few times. The Iroquois became so aggressive and nasty and were such good fighters that other routes were changed, and the main trade route became right here, these little back swamp water. They're not very big. I've shown you guys these creeks. We've detected them many times in the last 7 years. You know, they're waist deep. They're 8 feet wide. They're full of mosquitoes and bugs and brush slapping you in the face, mud up to your thighs. Not a pleasant way to get across Canada, especially in the 16 and 1700s. But this is the routes that were made because the warfare with the natives was so strong. And they took these back routes. And fortunately, I live within hundreds of meters of one of these places. My problem is, there's never, to my knowledge, been any proof about this Fort Laronde being right here at the head of this river. Okay, the mouth of this river is where we know they go from here out to the Ottawa River. It's 100 and some kilometers down to Mattawa. We know the river, the Lavaz was used. They talk about this fort. In my mind, there is no proof that this fort was here where they say it was. I'm going to read an article to you guys. I'm going to discuss it with Stan, and you guys will get an understanding of what I'm looking for. That's the first place. The second place is there was an ochre mine here used by the natives, and it's down further on the Colonial Tradeway. It's on the Mattawa River, and the natives talk about it as being a haunted place, where there were monsters in the ground, and you didn't go in there unless you had to. And they dug the ochre out, and they used it. It was, you know, nice red color that they used for war paint and dyeing cloth and stuff like that, leather. It's another famous place that we have not been to. That one is established. We know where it is. We can get there. It's a day's trek. We're going to go to that one as well, because there's some detecting along the way we can do there as well. I want to discuss both of those in today's video.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
So here's an article that I found from the 1981 North Bay Nugget, and it references previous sources which talk about this Fort Laronde. And I'm just going to read a little bit of this article to you guys. Laronde, fort or house. It was a major stop on voyageur route. Fort Laronde, Maison Laronde, Laronde House. It matters not what it is called. The main thing is that there was a habitation at the mouth of the Lavaz River, and it was a major stopover or resting point for the voyageurs who traveled thousands of miles by canoe and portage on the fur trade route which opened up Canada. It is not a myth. It is very well substantiated in the wonderful booklet Nipissing from Brule to Booth by Dr. Murray Leatherdale, who came out in 1975, and which deals extensively with the fur trade route and the paths of the early explorers, Etienne Brule and Samuel de Champlain. Mentioned in the book, I am going to quote from Dr. Leatherdale's book as follows. Fort Laronde is mentioned by several local historians, but it would seem that all references can be traced back to Dr. John J. Bigsby, a contemporary writer who was an eyewitness of the structure. He was allowed a passage in the Northwest Company canoe from the mouth of the Ottawa River to Sault Ste. Marie in the spring of 1819. His pictures of travel describe the vase, or mud portages, We embarked on the Vaz River, circulating slowly among rushes, reeds, cedars, and hemlocks. After a 6 miles pull, we entered Lake Nipissing at Laronde, a post of the Northwest Company, a decent, ordinary-looking house, not stockaded, with a potato ground close to it, among marshes and gneiss mounds. We leave Lake Nipissing by portage Chaudière de François. The decent, ordinary-looking house noticed by Bixby was presumably the same one described by Ross Cox as the snug house belonging to Mr. Laronde's sons. Bigby's book was not published until several years after his travels. Apparently, Fort Laronde had been moved in the interim, for in a footnote on page 164, he tells his readers that Fort Laronde is now removed to an island on the north shore, halfway between the Vaz River and the Rivière de François. It is considered to be 8 to 10 miles out of the canoe route to St. Mary's from Montreal. Well, guys, I have a problem with them saying that it's here because, as you know, our detectors will show us, without a doubt, we found an old fort that nobody else in the world knows is there. We've detected it for 3 years. We brought stuff to the museum. They didn't want it. We found hundreds of musket balls there. There were battles right there, guys. 15 miles from my house. And this is history that it's not accepted. It's there. It happened. The metal detectors, the items, the artifacts that we're finding don't lie. We found dozens of buttons, gun parts, an old coin, musket balls by the hundred. And a lot of these musket balls were impacted. They were shot in a battle. They probably hit people. There are probably bones where we were digging, but we weren't finding bones because metal detectors don't find bones. Also, the bones may have been eaten or dragged away by animals scattered around. Who knows? 100%, I'm telling you guys, there was a battle there where we've detected. You guys have seen those videos on the channel. I'm going to read this portion too because it's super exciting, and this is a note from the day, okay? This would coincide with the notes of Nicholas Gary of the Hudson Bay Company, who traveled from Montreal to Fort William in the summer of 1821. The entry in his diary for June 19th recorded that his party reached their encampment named Vaz or Maras. On the next day, they continued along Rivière La Vaz, and he noted in his diary the following: Lake Nipissing came to our view, and a change from misery to the greatest pleasure and comfort. Here we lost the mosquitoes, and bathing in the lake restored us to cleanliness and comfort. At 9 we breakfasted and started again. Lake Nipissing is about 12 leagues in length, though the canoe course is more, and 15 miles broad. At 12, our west-southwest course, we have made the Grand Traverse and come to a point called Isle aux Croix, so named from having 11 crosses on it, the tombs of 11 voyagers who were drowned. We now ran along the south bank, lowland inky with pine trees. There was a considerable deal of swell, and it produced all the feeling of seasickness. At 1:30 we landed on a rock for dinner. At 2:30 we embarked. Our course now is between islands, but barren rock and uninteresting. The Northwest Company have a post on Lake Nipissing, but which we did not visit. Bixby's reference to the Northwest Company's Laronde on Lake Nipissing clearly gives the impression that it was directly on the route to Fort William, but Gary's account rather implies that the post was off the course of the canoes. If they had come down the La Vaz River, which is out here across the road from my house, it dumps into Lake Nipissing. All the historians are telling us that the Fort Laronde was right there. There's a small island. We have detected it on this channel. We did not find a single rose head nail. All the experts are still saying that's where it was. This guy's account right here from 1821 tells us that that is not the case, that the fort was not there, because if they had come out of the marshes like he said and hit Lake Nipissing and bathed, they would have been at Fort Laronde, where local modern historians say the fort was. He's telling us it wasn't there.
Hey.
Morning, old timer.
Hey. Fort Laronde, it was supposed to be where Champlain Park is or on the island?
Yes. Now, do you not see the problem with that?
Well, the island was connected to land at the time it was formed.
Yeah.
They were on the point. It's been dredged many times over the years. The entrance to the river, it had to be cleared even back in the 1700s because of all the flotsam and jetsam. Good luck.
Well,
what is it you want to know?
Well, that's my problem, Stan, is I feel that with all the detecting we've done, and we know where there was a true fort, right?
Yeah.
Look at the items that we have found, on the main canoe route there at our location. We have not found anything like that down at the end of the river here.
But a couple guys have said over the years they did find stuff, and when they did the archaeology digs, they found significant small things. And my buddy did find a Voyager token of the guy with a pig on one side and then a guy with a pig on the other. When you spun that token, it was cast lead. He kicked a piece of dirt over on the island like 20 years ago. And there was this token that when you spin it on the surface, it turns into a moving cartoon of a guy fucking a pig. He's got his Voyager hat on, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, I get it. There have been things found there, and that's because people would have had to go down the mouth of the river. They had no other route. But
the volume of stuff that we should expect should be more. I agree. In one passage that I read about 10, 15 years ago, which I've never been able to find, they talked about a small cabin at the head of a lake on the portage. At the head of a lake. That could be the back of it could be, yeah.
Well, that's what my problem is that I'm going through these old newspaper clippings and I'm looking for books. Nobody can seem to actually pinpoint where this fort was supposedly located.
Their best guesses was on the island. That's the archaeologist's claim. It's in the archaeology study.
But we've been over that island, Stan, and I found one square nail. And it wasn't even an old square nail, like not a Rosehead 1700. It was like an 1860 square nail.
Yeah.
We should have found more stuff. So what I'm proposing is that I want to get back in here on the south side of the river and tromp around through there and see if we can't locate something more substantive.
Oh yeah, you scour every inch, you'll find something.
Because to me, our other fort location, look at the musket balls we found. We didn't even find one musket ball in that area. Nope.
You're quite correct, Gary. I agree.
No buttons. No buttons at all, Stan. No, they're missing the basic staples that other fort site had in abundance, which were buttons, musket balls, and rosehead nails.
And I'll be there first thing this spring, bud. I'm not giving up on the by any means.
No, I'm not either. I agree, but I'm just trying to think of some places that we could really, if we could find. I don't think they found where the fort is. I honestly don't think they have. I don't think it's where they think it was.
Well, I'll send you the archaeology study, or I don't know if you've seen it.
No, send it to me because I'm going to continue researching here. I want to find some documentation that actually says this is where the fort was located and it was mentioned in this 1723 journal or diary or.
Well, exactly. Those things were noted. Mackenzie, when he went through in 1801, noted the remnants of something, but he didn't see a house. 1700s is when somebody saw the house, I guess.
Well, I want it to be one of our missions this summer.
It wasn't there very long. It wasn't even there 100 years. And then it all moved over to Sturgeon and,
Even if it was there 25, 30 years, like a homestead site, think of what we find at a homestead site.
Mm-hmm. And there was supposed to be a potato farm there, too. On the low ground, there was a potato farm, apparently.
Here's my theory, Stan. I'll be blunt. I'll be honest with you. I think it's somewhere in between the bay and the river, and it's further south. And people would have stopped, and it was just a quick jaunt to get in the canoe, 5 minutes up the shoreline in the morning, and you were on the river. I don't think they have a clue where it was, and just because if they know that everybody turned and went up the Lavaz, they say, oh, well, that's where it was. I don't think it was, because we're not finding what we should find there.
I agree, Gary, but it has been turned heavy. When the archaeologists did their pits, without metal detectors, they could tell that it had been heavily moved around. I mean, there was lots of little churches and shards, and I'll send you the study.
There was supposedly a Nipissing First Nations village to the south as well of the river.
South of the river. Well, they had their big annual communes on Calendar Bay.
Well, I read an article here.
Was where the marina is.
Well, I read an article here that said a Nipissing Indian village was located directly on the south side of the Lavaz. I wrote it down because, I mean, we may not find a lot of metal stuff.
It was. When Darren Reno, who was one of the major Portage guys, he died in a motorcycle accident. He'd given a speech, and I got the map of him where he put all the Indian settlements. And there were two right opposite the park in the bush. Probably up on rocky ground, because most of it, as you know, is not that good. A lot of swamp. You know those rock elevated areas you attend? I would say detect those for primitive copper, because there's two native encampments on the south side of the river, in the bush, not far, close to the river.
Okay.
That was Darren's map. He published it. He gave it in a speech at wherever we went there to listen to it. You know, the Trout Lake.
Yeah, and I'm sure that the natives of the time would not allow the English to build a fort right in their community, so it would have to be just outside of the native village somewhere.
Well, the two native villages were in the bush, away from the camp, which was supposed to be on the island, on the north side of the river.
Well,
on the point.
I don't think it was on that island. I haven't found enough stuff there to convince me that that's the case, but...
And again, keep in mind, 10 feet of vertical height on the lake, buddy. How far out does that put the beach? 10 feet, dude.
Yeah.
But,
maybe that's why we're not...
Way out there.
Maybe that's why we're not finding it, because it's underwater. Maybe the actual location of the fort is now underwater.
It could well be, yeah. It could well be.
But
due to, could well be.
I am not convinced that it was on that island there. I just, something tells me it wasn't there, because we should find buckets of nails if that was the case.
Buckets and buckets of nails. Yes, one would. You would find the remains of the building and millions.
And we have not even found one rosehead nail there.
Nope, I agree. Lots of guys died.
For sure.
There has to be a shitload of activity in between those rocks.
There has to be burials there.
And there's no ground to dig in. It's all rocks.
Yes, burial cairns.
Or in a crevice. Like, there's no diggable ground anywhere near.
Now, would they have taken the time? Would they have taken the time to carve some kind of stone, just a word or two or a symbol or two?
You never know.
I think they might have. There's a good possibility.
Possible barriers. Wood would be gone, but nails would remain. There has to be, where you bury somebody and a bunch of guys stand around and say a few words. Somebody over the years, it's in the bushes along the edge of the trail, bud. There has to be. Just look for the flat areas that would be easy to access for anybody administering medical aid. Because you couldn't block a trail with, literally 6 brigades of canoers carrying their ship through. You had to get off the fucking road. Buddy's bleeding out. He's got a busted leg and a cracked head.
Yeah, well, just
think of the activity.
Think of the native attacks, man. That was a big part of the thing too, right? So
native attacks. That's where you find the musket balls. That's why I think was not. Those weren't all lost. I can look at them right now. Half of them are impacted, buddy. Somebody was shooting at them.
Absolutely. We must have found 100 musket balls at the original fort site there. I think there was a battle there. I think
easy.
There's missing history that even the experts don't know about, and our metal detectors give us more information than they've ever had up to any point.
Oh, exactly.
When they did all their studies back in the 70s, they were in there with trowels and shakers and.
Yeah. That's all. No detectors, buddy. That's why you got the best artifacts. That's why you got over 5,000-year-old copper arrowheads, dude.
I know. and it just stokes the imagination.
You know, that's before the fucking pyramids, Gary.
But
okay, well, older than Jesus then. Older than by double.
yes.
That's 10,000 years ago copper culture started, and it ended in 5,000 years ago because they ran out of fucking copper.
Yeah.
They couldn't find any more on the surface. The mines were depleted. There was hundreds of mines in Michigan. There are copper artifacts all over. They're quite common, actually, if you have a metal detector. There's whole collections online. But that shit is old, and there's got to be more, and I want to find it.
I agree. And that brings me to one of the next things I want to do this summer, 100%. We have to do it, is I want to go to that ochre mine, which they talk about as the Devil's Cave or whatever.
Yep.
And, I mean, there's a lot of history that talks about the native myths and legends about, you know, dark things coming out of the ground there. And we could definitely do some exploring there.
The fastest way in is the trail I walked in just past the Amabville Fall. Or
Can you walk right to the ochre mine, or do you have to cross the river?
You walk right to the river, and then you would have to cross the river because the trail goes right to the Purdy mine. It's the shortest way in unless you go around the back way or in from Mattawa, 533, and all that shit. Right up 17. It's about a mile and a half to 2 miles walk in.
Okay.
Nice clear trail.
And can we just wade this river? How deep is the river?
It was wadeable when I was there, but any other time of year it would be moving a little too fast. You'd have to. There's a calm area above where the river speeds up. It's not a falls or anything, but it's definitely a rocky rapids. That's what it's called, rocky rapids. So they had a short portage around it, which was on the other side of the river, but the trail, this road, was also the road into the Purdy mine. It was the original road into the Purdy mine. There used to be a Bailey Bridge over the river there, and that's gone now.
But we would be able to detect that portage along the way as well.
If we wanted to four-wheel in with a kayak, we just scoot right across, like 5 minutes. It's maybe 50 yards wide, like with a calm area above, you know.
Yeah. Okay, well, I want to start making a list of definitive places because we always do this verbally, and then we struggle to remember where did we talk about and where did we want to go before the grass grows up and before the bugs are...
ADHD, there's so much to detect, buddy.
I know.